reactions. Hiya Monstaz, and thanks again for stopping by. Tonight's story is part 2 of Cuphead.exe, Mugman.exe. I know, right? But yeah, this is the second part of a story that I'm not sure how far it's gonna go, but I hope you guys like it. I also hope you like the illustration that's going on. It's a drawing that I did of Mugman being held up by strings. I know, right? But big shouts out to all of you monsters out there. If you haven't seen part 1 to the Cuphead.exe series, there will definitely be a link in the description below. And if I can figure out how to get the little thing to pop up here in the corner, you can click that too, maybe, possibly. That's only if I can get it in there. But you know what you could do, monsters? If you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to get notified, go on and hit that notification bell. Well, alright monsters, I don't want to hold you up too much longer here, so let's get into Mugman.exe. So monsters, are you ready? You got your shoes tied or velcroed? Again, thanks for the support, monsters, and let the story begin. Cuphead.exe Part 2 Mugman.exe. Saturday had been a fulfilled day indeed. I had purchased that laptop from the local pawn shop. Got what I thought was a great deal. Came home and logged right into it. And yeah, started a gameplay of the most twisted version of Cuphead I assumed that had ever been made. I played for hours and joined Cuphead in a rampage through the game's map. I had logged off once we had reached the bridge back towards the Elder Kettle's house, and after Cuphead said he wanted to check on Mugman. While in some sort of daze, I had noticed that new icon labeled Mugman.exe. I wasn't able to take much more of that game that Saturday night, so I went on to bed. I woke up around 11 a.m. or so that Sunday. I didn't sleep well. I had tossed and turned throughout most of the night thinking about that Cuphead game I played. And sure enough, it was the first thing I thought about when my eyes had opened. I was sweating as I laid in bed. The hot sunbeams shined through my window, certainly playing part in making me sweat. After a moment, I got up out of bed and left the room. Unlike my room, the rest of the apartment was cold. I liked it. The chill in the air was comforting, until I walked into the living room area. My eyes turned while my head slowly caught up. There it was, the laptop I wanted so bad to buy. I don't recall leaving the laptop open, but it was. In fact, the screen was almost bent back 180 degrees. I'm surprised it wasn't broke, because it was bent back further than one of that age could possibly be capable of. Nonetheless, the laptop was powered down and only displayed the dead black screen. I have never been a big breakfast eater. The belly just ain't for it in the mornings. I typically only eat maybe 1 meal a day. So without much thought, I sat down on the couch in front of the laptop, straightened the screen back up to almost 90 degrees, and powered it up. Oh yeah, I had plugged it in first, so it didn't die on me again. The laptop had no troubles turning on, and I was quickly logged in with my username, and was now at the desktop screen. There they were, no doubt about it. There was the Cuphead icon that I clicked and played on, and right underneath it was the Mugman.exe icon. The icon image was just a simple image of Mugman's head, but the eyes were blacked out. Assuming I would wait to click on the Mugman icon, I had first clicked onto the Cuphead game itself. There was no load-up screen. As soon as the game came on, my camera view was hovering over the bridge area, and there he was, Cuphead, still standing in the same place, still shaking his head back and forth, still wearing that maniacal toothy grin. I had no control. I tried to move Cuphead using my mouse and keyboard, but he didn't move. Nothing seemed to move, and I had no control. The game was acting as if it was froze or something. There was no animation. But soon, an info bubble popped up and explained I needed to click and install the Mugman.exe, and then the game shut down. That god-awful jam disk sound was causing a racket inside the laptop itself. This went on for a short time, while my laptop screen was blacked out. I blinked a few times and felt like I had gotten nowhere. I went to take a deep breath as I rolled my shoulders. The noise had stopped, but the screen stayed black. I guess that was it for the $200 laptop I just bought. I went to get up from the couch when I thought I heard a voice say,
"Where you going, buddy?"
I looked back at the laptop. It was back at the desktop screen. I flopped back down and scrolled over and clicked the Mugman.exe icon. The same game menu popped up, but instead of it saying start game, it was saying continue. So I did. I pressed continue, and I proceeded with the game. The map was the same. Everything had a red undertone to it. Cuphead was now facing the direction to the Elder Kettle's house. There was no axe in his hand. He must have put it away. I rested my finger on the arrow key of my keyboard, and sure enough, I had full control of Cuphead's movements. I made the attempt to move him back towards the main part of the map, but was left short. I wasn't able to leave the bridge that way. At that point, there was no other choice but to go in the direction of the recently deceased Elder Kettle's house. It was so eerie, even though I knew it was just a game. But the past events had been eventful, but not in the best of ways.
"Let's go see what Mugman's up to,"
Cuphead said, like I had a choice. Not really. If I wanted to see what would happen next. Yes, I could have turned it off and simply just not have played. But I decided to continue. I walked up to the round pot-shaped one-story home. I wanted to blame my chilly environment for the goosebumps that had risen on my neck. I knew it was because of this game. Now the door to the house was open, and blackness filled the opening. No light was illuminated. With no more haste, I moved Cuphead into the house. Now, mind you, there had been no music playing the entire time up to this point. The music filled my laptop speakers with an old show tune sound.
"Aw, shucks, we need light. Let's light a fire in the fireplace,"
Cuphead said. It was an easy task. I walked Cuphead over to the fireplace. Another info bubble popped up saying to press the button to start the fire. With the press of the button, the animated flames filled the inside of the fireplace, and light instantly engulfed the room. I can now see where the eerie music was being played from. It was being played by an old record player that sat on a corner table. But the splatter of animated blood had totally overwhelmed my senses. Blood was splashed and splattered all over the room. Puddles and droplets were on the floor, as well as dripping from the ceiling. I may have skipped a breath or two. Cuphead chuckled.
"You like what I did to the place? Thought the room could use a fresh new color."
I was lost for words. Was I supposed to answer back? I wasn't sure, so I decided to stay quiet. I did wonder though where Mugman was. I assumed only the worst.
"Oh boy, I sure am starving,"
Cuphead replied. Cuphead on his own wheel walked over to the kitchen room table and pointed at a covered dish that had been placed in the center of the table.
"I'll let you uncover it, buddy."
Again, assuming the worst, I pressed the action button and Cuphead uncovered it. It was Mugman's hat. I was really confused and frightened.
"I know what you're thinking,"
Cuphead said.
"How could I do such a thing?"
Cuphead continued.
"Yeah, I feel kinda bad about it myself."
It was hard to think that this Cuphead felt any remorse. At that point in the game, I was still confused. It was really hard to comprehend what the game's purpose was. So far, it's been horrifying.
We need to put them back together. Tape and glue, it'll do, so Mugman can join us too."
Cuphead chanted this rhyme over and over while spinning and twirling in circles. After his short performance, he stopped and looked in my direction with a deadpan stare.
"I stuffed his other parts throughout this room and seemed to have forgotten where I had put them.
Cuphead spoke while scratching at the cracks that covered the side of his cup head.
But I'm sure you can find them.
I started to walk Cuphead around and clicked on all the objects and found all of Mugman's other limbs and torso. With having the new items in inventory, I dropped the parts on the table, piling them near Mugman's severed head. Cuphead laughed. The eerie music stopped, and I was left staring into a black screen. That jammed disk sound appeared again. This time, though, it was like the inside of the laptop was being destroyed. The screen started to strobe from black screen to scenes of Cuphead, sewing slowly and aggressively putting Mugman back together. The look in Cuphead's eyes were sparkling. I could tell he was enjoying this way too much. After the last initial strobe of the screen, it was black again. Though not for long, the black screen had faded out as the picture came back into focus. Cuphead had done it. Mugman, not in the best of ways, was all back in one piece. Cuphead looked at me.
You have to be the one to complete him, silly.
I was confused. What am I supposed to do? I asked under my breath.
You gotta fill his mug back up.
I was lost.
Use the vials of blood we collected, pour them in, and he'll let you do it.
It had started with Cuphead's second victim. It was his blood we collected to start. Then, through our short massacre through some of the map stages, I was in possession of 6 vials of blood. My chill turned into fierce sweating. I placed the scroller over each vial and dropped them into Mugman's head. The cracks were so bad on his head that some of the blood leaked from the cracks.
Hurry!
Cuphead shouted.
You have to press and hold all your controls, buddy.
Now that task would take both hands. Without a second thought, I pressed and held them down. Granted, I thought this was crazy. Though the room changed to all sorts of different colors. As the sound from the laptop started back up, I felt tingling in my fingers. And I reassure you, I tried removing them. I tried to lift them off the keyboard. But I was helpless. There was nothing I could do. At the same time I was trying to remove my hands from the keys, I was careful not to raise the laptop off of the table, because my eyes were fixated. Mugman started to twitch, and Cuphead had pierced wire strings into his parts, and the strings began to levitate upwards, towards the top of the screen until they disappeared. That tingling in my fingertips were now this severe stinging. Like long doctor needles were sticking the tips of them. Something must have stuck them, because my blood started to seep out from underneath my fingers and went in between the keys. I was in pain. I screamed. It was so bad. And with the sight of my blood, I became faint and lightheaded.
Got ya.
Cuphead smirked. I rubbed my forehead across my shoulder to remove the sweat running down into my eyes.
Yeah, I'll be in control of myself from here on out. You'll be in control of, well, in somewhat of control of my brother here. But remember who is truly in control.
I shook my head.
Me, of course.
Cuphead chuckled. He was right. I could move Mugman around, but he was more like a marionette now, being moved around, dangling from the strings that held him up. I had no choice to continue. I could only think of how stupid I was for not stopping. And Cuphead looked at Mugman.
You ready, brother?
Mugman, with his eyes rolling to the back of his head, let out a moan followed by a gurgle.
That's the sport.
And Cuphead continued on saying,
We still ain't finished. We got a lot of cleaning up to do. Also, you're gonna need those empty vials too. We'll need more blood. We have another stop to make.
I couldn't even swallow the spit that filled my mouth. And then, out of nowhere, Cuphead jumps at the screen and screams. Well, sorry to say, I squealed like a pig. And when I opened my eyes, I was back at the desktop screen. The one thing I noticed was I still could not remove my fingers from the keyboard. The second thing I noticed, on the desktop was yet another new icon, and this icon was labeled Chalice.exe.
Then all of a sudden, it stopped. I heard a scratching again at the door. I knew who it was. It was the cat.